Hello, everyone. Bon après-midi. Hello. Welcome to the SIHH TV studio and auditorium. Today in the afternoon, we are going to have two couples of sessions. The first two sessions are devoted to CSR, to sustainability, to responsibility particularly in the sectors of gold and of jewelry and precious stones. This session is about precious stones and jewelry. The next one in an hour is going to be more focused on gold. Hello also to those who are watching online. This session is going to take place in English, and it's going to last about half an hour, 35 minutes. Both sessions are organized by the team at the Fondation de la Haute Horlogerie that works on CSR. They're focusing on supporting the creation of responsible practices across the industry, particularly when it comes to the supply chain, to the procurement of the materials that go into creating watches and other precious pieces. Now, many steps have been taken over the years by many companies, by many industry-wide bodies to make the supply chain and the whole industry more sustainable, responsible, careful, in a way, accountable. And it remains a work in progress. It's a complex work, as we will hear. And it's also work that is driven by the arrival of new rules and regulations, which will come into effect in Europe, in the United States, and in China in the next several months. You have certainly read many reports about this issue. And recent reports have given somehow poor grades to many actors in the industry when it comes to environmental good practices. For example, Human Rights Watch said recently in a report that brands, I quote, can do much more. WWF classifies half of the top Swiss watchmaking brands as, I quote again, latecomers and non-transparent, end of quote. There is an issue with the reliability of these reports because very often they're kind of not really based on direct engagement between the NGOs creating the reports and the brands. They're more based on publicly available information on a website, for example, or questionnaires that are sent to the different companies and brands. And often they're a bit reluctant to fill them in for various reasons. So the reports are an indicator, but they're not an absolute indicators of the, let's say, the state of health of this sector. For this session, we have 4 guests. We'll first hear a very short talk just to kind of lay the scene about the topic, and then I will introduce the other 3 guests after the talk. The speaker is the executive director of the Responsible Jewelry Council, which was founded in 2005. It's an instrument, in a way, to bring good standards and practices to every step of the value chain, literally from mining to retail, to the end customer. So let's hear what they've been doing so far, what they're doing now, from Andrew Bone.
Thank you, Bruno.
Welcome, Andrew. Stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody. And it's so good to see so many of you here to talk about a subject that is so important to this industry. Because what you're part of now here, whether you're a member already, whether you have an interest in the RJC, or whether you follow what we do, this is our growing community of confidence. What we provide is that confidence for this industry to manufacture and sell the beautiful pieces of art that we have, whether it be watches, rings, bracelets. Because jewelry really is a composite of dreams that we're all selling. We're all dream sellers here. And what we must ensure is that from the moment that any material that creates that beautiful piece of art, from the beginning through to selling through to the consumer, that it must tell a great story. It must tell a positive story. It must tell the consumer that this beautiful piece of art that they're buying has left a legacy, a positive impact on the communities which delivered those materials to market. So it's a great honor to be here, it really is. And I would very much like to thank the Foundation de la Haute Horlogerie for really promoting us here at the SIHH, providing us with a little booth around the corner where after this, at any time, you can get more information on what we do. And I'd also like to thank my very good friends from Piaget, who along with the FHH have provided me with such a very warm and generous welcome, and that of the Responsible Jewelry Council as well. One thing that I think is really important to point out at the beginning of this is that the Responsible Jewelry Council was created, as Bruno said, something like 15 years or 12 years ago now, with 14 visionary founding members. And so it's an organization that was created by the industry, for the industry, to help the industry collaboratively together, from mining through to retail, to be able to mitigate and overcome the many risks that were emerging then. And the world has changed a lot since then too, but we've moved along with that. And as I'll show you in this presentation, how we have evolved as an organization. And I call it an organization, but in fact, we're more than that. The RJC, I feel anyway, and I know a lot of our members do, it's not just an organization, this is a movement. And this is a movement that's providing the basis and the platform to be able to build on the values and the objectives that we all have. So this is a little snapshot of the RJC, established, as Bruno said, in 2005, started with 14 members. Oh, and I wanted to extend a very warm hello to members in the audience as well. If there are any, I know there are some RJC members here, would you please just raise your hand? That is very gratifying. Thank you very much indeed for coming along today. All those hands you saw raised, these are pioneers. These are inspirers. These are leaders. These are people who know that the Responsible Jewelry Council doesn't just bring along values, it brings along value. And it brings value to their businesses, and it will continue to bring value to other members as we grow throughout the years. So at the moment, we started with diamonds, platinum, and gold. This year, we will see the introduction and widening of our scope to include colored gems and silver. And we're here for small and large businesses. The majority of our membership, in fact, are minimum fee payers, but we have leading organizations as well involved in that. And we provide third-party assurance. All our members, when they are certified, are independently audited, and that gives a great deal of leverage for those members in the marketplace. And we also seek to harmonize with other standards organizations to ensure we relieve the what we call the audit burden of our members. This gives a good indication of our growth and our journey over the years. And it's not just our journey, of course, it's our collective journey. All of those people that you saw raise their hands as well. And this increase and this profile that we've grown over the years, it's not down to people like me. I'm just here to help. It's down to our members, because we're only as good as our members, and it's our members that have grown us. So we started in 2005. Our first code of practice was published in 2009, and many of you will be aware of our code of conduct as well, excuse me, which also includes tracing materials through the pipeline too. We had our first review of our COP in 2013, and we're just in the process now, hopefully, in the coming weeks, of concluding our most recent review. So this is an organization which is continually evolving, and again, it requires that input from our visionary members. When we look to the future, and the future is always changing, we use the past to build our experience, our expertise, and have the confidence to move forward. But we're only going to move forward if again, we have that vision, we acknowledge and mitigate the risks that are coming up all the time. I started working with De Beers, and I worked on the Kimberley process. And at that time, in the late 90s, it was about conflict diamonds. But we moved on from there now. It's much more than just conflict diamonds, dirty gold. There are so many other issues now that are arising that we have to address. So one of the things that obviously we can use collaboratively is technology. And you will all have heard about blockchain by now, and all have various degrees of understanding of that. Mine's pretty low, but I do understand that it's an emerging technology which is going to be able to help our industry. Detection and disclosure, again, we think of the risk of laboratory-grown diamonds, and the technology that is being grown to ensure that we can have that disclosure and that detection, working with manufacturers of that product as well. But it goes across all materials too. So again, these are challenges working in collaboration with our members to ensure that we're very much on the cutting edge of that. And then finally, of course, this never goes away. That really should say increasing demand, because it's an ongoing demand from stakeholders for verified, responsible business practices. And this is really the foundation of what we provide for you, is to be able to show that you can demonstrate that you have been independently audited against values and standards that together we've created that give assurance to all our stakeholders, and of course the ultimate arbiter, the consumer. So that's it really in a snapshot of what we are. As I say, we're more than just an organization, we're a movement. We are only as good and as big and as powerful and as effective as the members we have, and we are very lucky to have fantastic members. A lot of them have contributed so much and invested so much in the RJC. And before I say my final word, I'd very much like to recognize Monsieur Charles Chaussepied in the audience. This is an individual who has worked so tirelessly for the RJC, for its improvement, for its onward development. He's been a great mentor to me, and I'll be leaving the RJC in a couple of months. And I owe him a great deal, as I do to many of you here today. So thank you very much indeed. We're all here to take any questions afterwards, but thank you for your time and attention.
Stay at one of the tables. I'm just going to invite the other three members of this panel. Charles Chaussepied, indeed, from the chair of the Standards Committee of the RJC. Frédéric Gouverd, CEO of Boucledor. And Courtenay Ross, CFO of Richold. And Courtenay, I want to start with you, because Richold is a diamond supplier, polish manufacturer to the industry. You're based here in Geneva. You have operation on all the major diamond places in the world. And you touch the whole chain, literally from the miners to the brands at the other end. You buy rough diamonds, and at the end of the process, you sell it to watch and jewelry brands. Now, when we think about diamonds, many images come to mind immediately. You have the beautiful gem that kind of blows us away. You have the blood diamonds. You have the synthetics. Every one comes with a different set of challenges. But let's leave aside the synthetics for now. We're going to talk about that later. But what is the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
Well, I'd have to say it's compliance and due diligence. Mm-hmm. I mean, in the last few years, it's been a major issue. It's essential for doing business. Diamonds are a bit like cash. They're very tradable. They're moderately traceable. So they open themselves up to some of the abuses, like money laundering, and they're hard to control. So compliance has become a major part of making sure we can do business with leading reputable companies. And RJC is part of that momentum. There's also PPP from the beers, that's the best practices. There's Signet. And then some of the other organizations, big like the Belgium authorities, want to control for money laundering. And similarly, the big groups like LVMH, Richemont, they all have their own ethical charters. And so everybody is providing documentation, regulations, rules. We have to stay abreast of that. We have to keep ahead of the curve. And we have to make sure that we're compliant. We can prove that we've done the work. Otherwise, nobody will do business with us.
Before asking the next question, I want to ask somebody from the team to make sure that we get a little bit less noise coming in from that other stand behind there. Can you just go and check, please? The music, I mean. So basically, you're saying that compliance and regulations are a growing pressure in a way. And indeed, the diamonds are somehow very closely monitored. I mean, we are in a situation where there is serious, deep monitoring of the whole thing, right?
Well, they monitor the diamonds, and they also monitor the financial flows. And not just of each company, but of the preceding companies and the succeeding ones. So there's really a chain of control. Yeah. If you're in a chain where somebody breaks the link and doesn't do the compliance, you're just as liable.
Frédéric, Boucledor is at the other end of the chain. You're a company of 120 people. Also here in Geneva, you're leaders on buckles for the watchmaking industry. Some of the brands here at the salon are actually your clients. But you face another set of challenges. You need to adapt to the requirements of your clients, and each one, actually, as Issa just said, each one has a different set of requirements. So how do you adapt to that?
At first, we heard about COC, and before to make the journey for the COC within our company, we have decided to meet our refiners. And by visiting our refiners, we have seen the world change very quickly. We saw COC line, non-COC product, but we have seen that all the market change, and we have seen green line production with many other requirements. And for us, the minimum was the COC business.
Which is a certification you made last year, right?
Right now.
Okay. So what prompted you to do that? What was the motivation to do that?
At first, we have two motivations. The first motivation we have, it's when we have seen at the TV the problem with Hermes and the crocodile farm and the condition of life of animal. The second...
so there was a scandal around that, not a big one, but a small scandal around that, which kind of suggested that there may be problems down the line.
Okay, yes. And the second thing is a category of final customer. Today, when we read the paper, we can see that our final customer, the most influent customer, is the millennial. And millennial is very interesting and enjoy very much healthy, integrity, and so on. And I think in the future they will demand a better transparency.
We want to come back to this point about where does the real pressure comes from. But how was the certification process for you? What kind of changes did you have to implement in order to get to the certification?
At first, we thought it was an easy journey.
Just fill a few forms and...
Because Boucledor has another certification. We have the ISO 9001 certification. And we thought it's another certification, and it's easy. It's not so easy what we think, because we need to to manage all the flow from the raw material to the retreatment. And we need to manage very accurately all the IT data and the physics flow.
Yeah.
It's very important. And the other thing we have seen along our journey, it's concerning our own supplier. Because, Boucledor is a very well organized company. We have an IT system, we have an IT engineer, we have everything. But we work with some small supplier.
Who don't have that kind of infrastructure, yes. So how do you impose these rules downstream to your suppliers?
It's very difficult to impose because we have different type of supplier. First, the big supplier.
Yeah.
Some of our big supplier in the Swiss horlogerie work with a main customer, a main brand. And if the brand is not interested by COC and so on, our supplier didn't want to work with us again.
Yeah.
For the small supplier, it's very difficult because for us, it's a lot of paper. It's a lot of it's a heavy work for a small quantity. They have not the employee for following the business and so on. And we have had some difficulties. We need to buy some machine to replace some supplier.
Yeah.
And it's a cost.
Indeed. When we spoke a few weeks ago, you told me, well, one of the issues is that, but by the way, everything you're saying means that the certification process is really thorough and detailed and carefully crafted, right? Which is a compliment. On the other side, it imposes a cost in many different ways, not only financial. You told me a few weeks ago that, of course, it makes the product more expensive. And it turns out that some clients may talk about buying certified products, but then they also go the route on non-certified because it's cheaper. Is this happening?
Yes, it's right. At first, our willing is to be certified with the CAC certification, but in my mind, I don't want the customer pay for this certification. We make some investment and so on, and some of our customer brand, we work with them. This supplier, this customer asked us to have the certification, and the same customer, in the same time, tell us, okay, but I'm going to work with another supplier because
too expensive now.
It's expensive now.
So there are challenges also when you go in the right direction. Thank you, Frédéric. We come back later for a couple of more questions, but Charles, so you chair the RJC Standards Committee. Now, clients and shareholders at the same time want to know the sources, that the sources of stones are kind of controlled. They're verified, etc. And the RJC, as we said before, is basically a tool to make that possible in a way, to fulfill the legal requirements and the demands. Can you explain how the standards are developed? We just heard that they're very tight. How do you develop them? Start from a white piece of paper, and how do you get to the final standard chart?
Thank you, Bruno. Very quickly, I'd like just to come back on what you said, which is very important. Being certified should not be that much expensive and complicated because, and I come back to your question, we collected the best standards in all the areas we are covering. For the human rights, then of course in Geneva we have the UN. Then you just have to copy-paste the human rights. If you go for corruption, anti-corruption, anti-bribery, You have a lot of standards already existing, which are much
Transparency,
better
etc.,
than ours.
yes.
For health and safety, it's very structured and organized. In fact, what we did, we were collecting in each department what is the best, and trying to have everything together. And we built the first standard, which is the Code of Practice, COP, which was the first time 155 questions. And if you are living in a, let's say, Western European country or North America or even Japan, Asia, most of the country, normally you should go very quickly through that kind of, okay, some company, and when you go to smaller company, have some difficulties with procedures and with politics. But in fact, it's like Monsieur Jourdain, they do prose without knowing they do prose, you know. Then sometimes it's just structuring their way of working. Okay. What I would like to say as well is these standards are not developed only by collecting what existing outside. We are reviewing our standards with our standard committee with two bodies. One body is industry representative with all the different industry. Then you have people involved in the, okay, it's coming later, involved in the mines. Then you have refiners. You have manufacturers, you have retailers, you have diamond traders, you have polishers. All these people are represented in our committee. And on the other side, you have NGOs.
Yeah.
That's a reason why it's very important. We have, let's say, NGOs working with us. And this is a guarantee. The second very important point to remind to everybody is that we are third-party audited. It's not a private standard. Being certified against COP is not just because I'm, we are between us. It's not between us. It's third-party certified by international auditors. Okay, it is a first answer.
So the adoption of the standards is voluntary. Company can start the process if they want, but there is no mandatory or no.
It is totally voluntary.
But there is a lot of pressure, of course, to do it.
No.
But how happy are you? How satisfied are you by the adoption so far?
As a member or
as the chair of the standards committee?
Okay, standard committee is the place where you are developing the next review, the next COP or the next COC. And it is a kind of laboratory. And it is like everywhere. Some of the people say, it's not enough, this is too easy, you should be much stronger than you named the people before. I will not name them today. And other, of course, the industry side says, my God, I'm not paid for it, I'm not paid just to have procedure, then please be nice, be efficient, try to go straight to the point. Then it is kind of game, you know. What is important is to go as far as possible without being totally against our own industry. And we have today a nice progress. What we know today, we have a target, is the regulation. We want to be as good as a regulation. We want to be beyond the regulation.
And there is a new regulation coming, right? 2021, European Union, new rules.
Then you have a regulation and you have a guideline. Regulation, you never know what's coming. You had Dodd-Frank Act in America some years ago, which was asking for due diligence for African gold. In 2021, early in the year, the new European regulation will be applied, which is a due diligence on the gold. It will be complete due diligence for, I mean, the threshold is 100 kilo, but it will change. It will be 100 kilo at the beginning, which is a lot of gold, but in the future it will be, of course, lower. And we have a guideline. Guideline is now, we have OECD people, and OECD people are working for all the, let's say, Western countries, plus Japan, plus I think China is a member as well, is an associate member. And these people are giving you, let's say, what should be the rule in the future. And they released the OECD precious metal due diligence. And this is very important. This has been recognized by 47 countries, and it has been applied by many industries, and it will be in the new COP code in March 2019.
Now, so far, if we really simplify to the extreme, we are talking about know your diamonds. But the 2021 rules also have a provision about knowing your customer. What does that mean, know your customer?
Know your customer or know your counterpart, because it's not only customer, it can be counterpart, can be a supplier, can be anybody you are dealing with. It's a tool which is used for years by the diamond people in Antwerpen. It means that you have to first make due diligence on the people you are working with. Then he's an expert. Then know your customers is not only just checking the company you are working with, but checking the owner of the company. Who is the back? Who owns this company? And you have to be sure this company has a license to operate, registre commercial in Switzerland, very easy. In other countries, it's another name. And this company has, let's say, a good background,
who's the real owner?
good reputation, and let's say acceptable CEO. Okay, good.
Courtenay, how easy is that going to be to figure out or to identify the real owner of the company, et cetera, et cetera? So go in the other direction of the chain.
Well, what we do for a company like Richemont, you go onto the internet and it's all pretty available, share price, the rest. For a company in a third world country that you might have to deal with, you ask for their passports. The Indian authorities, the Belgian authorities, it's a prerequisite to do business with them anyway. And they ask, it goes both ways. So we have to provide the information to them. We have to get their company registration. So you see the name there, you compare it to the passport, and then you can use other organizations that do credit checks and verifications.
Yeah. Andrew, I have the impression that we are kind of at a sort of fork in the road. There is a lot of pressure from millennials, from customers, from media, from NGOs. The industry is certainly adopting standards. I was told before that at some industry gatherings, there are today 4, 5, 6 times more attendees talking about these things than there were just a handful of years ago. Are the suppliers and the actors that don't adopt standards just going to die? Or are we going to see 2 parallel markets, one certified, one not, living side by side? What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's sort of on the end of that, what you were saying is that we already have that. I mean, we have, let's say, we have leaders in the industry here. These are the pioneers. These are the people who are leading. So we already have these 2
but
tracks, if
theoretically,
you like.
the ideal scenario is that one disappears and the other
let me
grows.
tell you, one is getting smaller while the other one's getting bigger.
Okay.
So what we're doing is co-opting those people who maybe at the moment don't understand the value in becoming an RJC member and being certified. And there are many out there, many that we still have to outreach to. But what we are seeing is a trend towards that. First of all, you've got to get the awareness. Then you've got to get the understanding. And then you've got to get the experience as well. And hearing from people like Frédéric about what he went through. Yes, it is challenging, but it is worth it because this is an investment. This is no longer, I think, do we have these kind of practices as a bolt-on to our business. This is now an integral part of it. It is now what is people requiring. We were talking about people maybe being forced by their customers. They're not being forced. You know, this is actually what people require now to do business. It's another business tool. And that is why the RJC was set up by the industry, because those visionaries recognized that. That's the way it was moving to. And so we're having this increasing awareness amongst the customers and the consumer, and we're seeing that also in the industry. So when we talk about those 2 tracks, the ones that aren't certified, the ones that are certified, one is growing and the other is getting more narrow.
I want to spend a few words on a point that Charles made about countries, because of course we talk about suppliers and customers, but then there is another kind of player, countries. And when we talk about regulations and codes of conduct, etc., we touch on local laws and local regulations, and I can assume that some countries don't really look at this very favorably.
Yeah, we have, there are disparities in certain geographies. I mean, the European Union now is only catching up, say, with the Dodd-Frank, for example. We have other areas. What we set our standards at is sort of a minimum of an international average on that, and to aspire to. But this is also one of the great values that the RJC and membership and certification provide as well, is that you're one step ahead of that legislation in many respects. And governments and civil society recognize that when an industry actually takes a proactive stance, the pressure is less on them. And what you find is more of a collaborative approach to that. I'm not just convinced, I actually know, for example, that if the diamond industry had not been proactive in creating the World Diamond Council and working positively with civil society and governments through the Kimberley process, diamonds would have been on that list of minerals in Dodd-Frank. The reason they weren't is because the industry and civil society have been working with the US authorities, with the State Department, and the American government had invested a lot in that. And that is how the diamond industry avoided the huge risk of becoming part of that as well. So we have evidence that when an industry is proactive, when it works collaboratively, reaches out to key stakeholders, it can win and it can stay ahead of the curve.
Courtenay, I want to come back to the issue of synthetic diamonds, because the industry has been growing in many different ways for ages, and then suddenly, something like 3 years ago, synthetic diamonds arrive, and they look pretty much like real ones. They represent only like 3% of the world market right now, but are they a real concern?
Yeah, they're a real concern. I mean, synthetic diamonds have been around since the 70s, but it's only really been, I think, in 2013 that they started to appear inadvertently in the luxury market. And since then, there's practically zero tolerance to selling a luxury product, claiming it's natural, and then finding out that there are synthetics in there. So we have to be very careful.
So how do you ensure that you are dealing with a real one and not synthetic one? Is screening technology really good now, or are there still margins of errors?
Well, all of the screening is based on the machinery, and up until several years ago, it was laboratories that would do it. Now we have companies like IIDGR, an offshoot of De Beers and HRD in Antwerp. They are making machines, screening machines that are available on the market. So most of the major diamond traders and most of the major brands have these machines, and the people that operate them in their companies. So, and as a result, for example, in Richemont, we screen everything that comes in and we screen everything that goes out. And if we're working in a chain with people who are doing the same thing, I think now you could say we know more about the nature of our diamonds than ever before. That's, with one point, it's all subject to the technology in the market.
Yes, please.
Yes, I'd like to add to this physical testing procedure, which they are more and more applied, that if you are member of the Responsible Jury Council, and if you are certified, you have signed and you have been audited to have a supply chain should be in total integrity with what you sell. If you say I sell diamonds, that means natural diamonds. If you sell synthetic diamonds, you have to mention it all along and on the invoice, on the delivery sheet. This is synthetic diamond or lab-grown diamond, whatever. Then if you don't do that, then you are in a major non-conformance, and you lose the certification. That means your reputation becomes very bad.
Absolutely. But synthetic diamonds do have a place in the market in general.
Absolutely. I think you've got to think that real natural diamonds have been around for 1 billion, 3 billion years. You can't really fake that. A synthetic diamond's made in a farm in China, and it does cost much less. So when people are looking for a luxury product, they'll want the natural, they'll pay the high price, or they maybe go for alternative choice or a cheaper product, and that's where I think the synthetics will fall in.
Okay. I think we have time for 2 or 3 questions from the audience here, if anyone has a question. There's a gentleman here. Please just keep your hands up. So there, so I can see you. And anyone else? Not for now. We have a noise invasion, but just stand up.
Yes, good afternoon.
Please.
Mr. Bone, I have a question concerning stone certification. I heard that Gemfields may be certified. Is that correct under RGC?
Gemfield?
Yes.
No, not yet. We've been, during the time of consultation that we've had over the past couple of years, because I said in my presentation that we will be incorporating colored gems this year. And Gemfields clearly and obviously have been part of that discussion and that consultation, but we haven't yet incorporated that in our scope. So Gemfields aren't a member and they haven't been certified yet. But
are you considering that?
Of course. As soon as our COP has been certified and approved and implemented, and it includes colored gems, Gemfields and anyone working in colored gems is very, very warmly welcomed.
Okay. Considering the court cases that are in London with the miners and that they're partners with the Mozambique government, is that possible?
Sorry, say again?
Is that possible because they're partners with the Mozambique government and that is much of a corrupt government? And there is a big court case going on in London with which you must have heard of.
Which we won't have the time to detail.
That is something that we will see, and that's something.
Because I think it's important for the industry. I'm a colored stone person. I love my job.
We do our due diligence.
Okay.
We look at the candidate members, and then of course everything comes out in the washing in the audit. So we'll see.
Great, thank you for your answer.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes. Keep your hand up so he can see you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the discussion. I just had a question for the RGC. There was a report from the OECD published early this year, in April 2018, and showed that less than 50% of the RGC standards respect the 5 steps of the due diligence required by the OECD, and even in the implementation, it respects only 26% of this OECD due diligence. So now I'm wondering, what do you think about that, and what progress you can make about it? And also, it was another report from Human Rights Watch saying that the system of audit was some weak because it allows companies who are RGC certified, even if they fail to meet some basic human rights. And you already mentioned that you integrate the NGO and you take care about what they say and what they want to improve, but even if this report, they say that in the decision-making bodies, they are not included. So I'm wondering what you have to say about
Charles?
it. Thank you.
Many questions. Thank you. Very important question. You have articles, of course, about if you are robust enough or not. I don't know your figures. Maybe they know what they are talking about. Of course, the COP today, the 2013 COP is not complying with the OECD due diligence because we didn't know about that at that time. Now we have it. Then we are working to embed the OECD due diligence 5 steps in our review, which it will be completed hopefully next Friday in Geneva. We organize a meeting here. About the level or the quality of our NGOs. Our NGOs are really, you have the list on the site, you can go and have the names and the names of the NGO and the people sitting on the standard committee. These people are clearly very competent. The problem is, at the moment, you have many NGOs. We try to have partners. We try to have people who are constructive, who are positive. There is a discussion, then this is the answer to your second question. The third question is if the NGO are strong enough inside the RGC. This is another discussion. 5 years ago, we had no NGO at all. Today, I have a co-chair. I'm a co-chair of the Standard Committee for the industry side. I have a young lady in charge of the NGO side. Then she's member of the EXCO committee. She's not at the board, but she's member of the EXCO committee where all the decisions are made. And we are benchmarking at the moment many other standards tools, a standard system, to try to look beyond 2019 and see how we could do, what we could improve. I totally agree that some NGO push us in the back. It is their role. On the other hand, don't forget that what we ask to our members is very difficult. We have to ask to these companies who are fighting every day to comply, to seduce the buyers, to do a lot of procedure, a lot of work. It's not true, not a lot, but a little bit, to be certified. Then there is a limit somewhere. It's always, I agree. For many NGOs, it's not enough. For many industries, it's already too much.
It's a work in progress, but the direction somehow is right. We have time for the last question, and the lady asked for, yeah.
Hi, I'm Celine, and I had a question in regard of the introductions. You said that you wanted to create a movement and that you wanted to defend value creations. And you talk about the importance of giving some guidance to the consumer. So far, the RGC is a process that is understood by the RGC members or the people of the professions, and there is no certification in the eyes of the consumer that stands for ethic or respect of the impact at the environmental level or social level. Wouldn't it be great that this certification have value in the eyes of the consumer, and that all the speeches about ethics get a clear definitions so that the consumer understands what he's buying?
Yeah,
Please.
absolutely. No, you're bang on right. Again, we're evolving. Begun in 2005. We've recently taken on external expertise in communications. Part of that is raising awareness right across the board. And I'm always a believer from the experience I had in the Kimberley process was that demand pull is a far more effective way of bringing an industry into line than the pushing of the other, from the other end. So yes, we are, and it's I think the future of the RJC and its further growth depend very much on creating that awareness out there with the consumers as well. But for the time being, we're just working on building our base, and we are raising that profile. And again, events like this, and with partners like FHH and others, we are working to get it out there.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We're going to end here because we went long, but I think it was worth it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay here, don't go away. Stay here for a moment. So we're actually literally 9 minutes away from the next session, which is going to be devoted to gold. But I want to mention one thing, and can I ask the team to go to the next slide? The one with the email address. Because I have to mention that the FHH, the Fondation de l'Horlogerie, is actually a trade member associate of the RGC since last year. Since June, they represent the RGC in Switzerland for the watchmaking industry. So if you have any question, or if you're interested in becoming a certified member, you can write to this address or go see them right literally behind this wall at the FHH booth here at the salon. Now, for a very short while, we're going to suspend the live stream while we prepare the room for the next session, which is going to be at 4:30 p.m. Geneva time about supply chain and sustainability, but this time in gold. 4:30 p.m. Geneva time. And thank you to you all for coming. Goodbye for now.